Hello, class. So we are deep into the semester now. We're just wrapping up week 10, beginning week 11 with this assignment here. We're working our way through module 3, and being done with week 10 means we have just 5 weeks of the semester left to go. We have this major essay to write and then one more project, and then that's all she wrote for the fall of 2020. So right now I'm making this video to talk about introductions and conclusions. So working through this module, this assignment, you've just looked at some example introductions and maybe come up with some guidelines, or hopefully come up with some guidelines that you've shared with your classmates via discussion post. So hopefully that means you have some ideas about introductions and what looked good to you and what maybe you didn't like about some of the introductions that you saw. So I just wanted to add my 2 cents about introductions and do a short lecture on introductions with also a small component on conclusions too. So let's move on. I think it's not going to let me advance slides. There we go. So introductions, right? When I think about introductions, I think about introducing myself to people or being introduced to people, right? They always say you never get a second chance to make a first impression. Same goes for your writing in your introductions, because people are going to read that introduction and they're going to judge whether they're interested in continuing to read what you have to say. And your goal, I hope, as a writer, is to have them read what you have to say. So that introductory paragraph is really important in making the audience interested to hear more about what you're saying. One way that you can get them interested is to give them the so what. Let them know what you're talking about and why they should care about this issue in the first place, why it should matter to them, or maybe not just them specifically, but any human being. Why should we care about what you have to say? So you may have heard along the way, when you were learning about 5-paragraph essays and things, that an introductory paragraph has 3 parts: a hook, some kind of development, and then it usually ends with the thesis statement. Now, I'm trying to get you away from being so formulaic with starting with a hook. I know when I say that, a lot of students throw in a quote at the beginning or ask a question because they've heard those are good ways to start an introduction. I don't want you to use those formulaic things. I want you to concentrate about just making it interesting for your readers. All right, so how can you do that? Make sure that you're answering these questions for your readers, and don't literally answer these questions, put them in your paper. But you want to make sure that through your introduction, your readers understand, what is this? What am I writing about? Again, bringing it to that idea of introduction and a conversation with someone. Imagine that you walk into the cafe on the quad, which isn't open now, but think about a cafeteria setting, and your friends are all talking about something, and you don't have the context. You don't know what's going on, right? You're going to feel awkward. It's going to take you a minute to get into that conversation. So give your readers that same kind of courtesy to bring them into the argument. Let them know, what is this that we're talking about? Why are we talking about it? Why should I be reading this? And then what do you want me to do? So make sure that's all clear to your readers during your first paragraph. So you can answer these questions by giving them the context. Come on, guys, here's what we're talking about. Okay, give them some information. So maybe some background information they need to understand it. Some information related to how this topic relates to what's going on in the world. Then you want to tell the reader your main idea. Why should they care? Why should they keep reading? What is it that's your goal? What do you want them to do in the end? And then, of course, you're going to, somewhere in your introduction, put your thesis statement. So let's talk a little bit about your claim or your thesis statement. All right. It should be an arguable point. Now, you might be thinking, the effects are the effects, the causes are the causes. Even in a causal essay like we're doing, it should be an argument, right? Some people may disagree that these are the effects. Some people may disagree that these are the causes, or that which one is more important. Maybe they'll say, yeah, these are all effects, but this one is the main one. So there's going to be people perhaps who disagree with you. All right, you want to make sure that your topic is not too broad or too narrow. People get nervous when they're writing a 7-page essay. They need to have some giant topic. You don't. Small topic, even with 7-page essay. You don't want to write about all of global warming, maybe just the effects on the ice cap, like one of our classmates is doing. It should give your conclusions after your research, right? Remember, you can be changing your thesis all along. We started out with a research question. Your thesis statement is probably going to be the answer to that question, all right? It should let the readers know kind of what they can expect through your work and make sure it is not vague, all right? They'll tell you avoid the first person. Avoid the first person just in your thesis. You can have it in your paper. You can have it in your introduction. In fact, starting with a good anecdote about how this relates to you is a great way to start your paper. But in your thesis statement, you don't want to have something like, I believe, in my opinion. That weakens your thesis statement because it's like just me. It's just me over here. Like, you don't have to believe just me. No, your thesis statement is going to be based on your research. It's not just you anymore. You found this out, you researched it, and it's a broad opinion now. So state it that way. This is kind of a fact, and I'm going to show you why it's a fact. All right, again, it should pass that so what or who cares test. All right, make sure that the reader knows why you're writing about this and why they should care. All right, so that's introductions. Let me talk briefly about conclusions. This is a great resource here at the bottom. This PowerPoint is linked to underneath in the assignment in the module that you're doing. So you can go there, and this is a great handout. And the Writing Center at UNC, just a great resource for writing in general. But for your conclusion, how are you going to bring this all together? Okay? Do you see a theme here with the so what? All right, when you think about the so what, again, you can look at the handout for the specific directions on this. But basically, you're thinking about, if you say, okay, the topic of my paper is ice caps melting. So what? Well, so what? The ice caps are melting, the water levels are rising, this is contributing to global warming, you know, California's going to be underwater, whatever you might want to say. Why should people care? So that's kind of the so what game. Just keep saying so what. You can think about the themes in your introduction. If you introduced the essay with a personal example, go back to that personal example. You may have heard, going back to the 5-paragraph essay, may have heard it said, you know, restate your thesis or your main points in your conclusion. So the answer there is yes and no, right? So you want to maybe synthesize, give the main summary of your paper's main points, but you don't want to repeat any words or sentences in your paper. Another way to end is to find something, a quote from your research that really has stuck out to you and is kind of central to your theme. That might be a good way to end your paper. Or this causal essay, we've talked about causes, we've talked about effects. Maybe you want to propose some solutions, something that we should do as we move forward. Or talk about broader implications. You know, ice caps melting, one particular aspect of global warming. If we don't look at global warming and do something, I don't know, we're all going to be in trouble. Okay, so that's a little bit about what you should include in your conclusion, what you should do, and just a little bit about introduction and conclusion. All right, thanks class. Happy writing.